hundreds of years before. So is there anyone who can put a parallel between the civil war, the real one, and the what happened some 2 weeks ago? Okay, so Mohammed Jia, go ahead, since no one is intervening.
Okay, sir, no problem. It's we can draw the parallel of that the American people is divided issue, and it led to conflict. In the first in the Civil War, it was the issue of slavery. Now it is the issue of partisanship of let's say Democrats, the rivalry between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Very good, yes. But when you said the Civil War was a problem of slavery, in other words, of race, yes, you agree?
Yes, sir. But mainly the slave work, not
Yes.
the race, especially the slave
Well,
work that the
yes,
South relied on.
yes, good. But anyway, more broadly, we can speak that there was a real issue of race at that time. Okay, so the people of the south of the United States used to import slaves from Africa, right? And they considered these people as slaves. In other words, kind of less than humans. So there was a real problem of race at that time. And in the 21st century, with the presidency of Donald Trump, don't you think that he also raised an issue of race again, or not? Si
I,
Mohammed,
I
or anyone else, by the way.
I think so, because what happened with the man who died, recently.
So,
Maybe
Ms. Khadija, do you remember how we call this movement?
I don't remember.
So
I don't.
Black Lives
Matter, Black Lives Matter.
Matter. Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter. So this is the new movement, which we will see again in the coming lessons, is very, very, again, evocative of what happened some 100 years ago. Not the Civil War, but another movement that we're going to see in a moment. So anyway, Khadija, go on. Sorry, I interrupted. I
Uh,
wanted just to make sure students note this movement, the current movement of during the Trump presidency, called the Black Lives Matter.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Clear. I didn't learn a lot. But what I noticed, like, the Civil War a long time ago, like 150 years, and, compared to what happened recently, it's like, provoking that sensitivity that people have towards slavery, or has towards being controlled and owned by, caste, by people, those people who have power. So Donald Trump actually raised this subject again, especially when he is not doing enough to support the black people in America.
Very
So
good.
I really don't have a lot of information, but I can see that there is a relationship there, and that actually history is posing itself right now. Even we are in the 21st century, it's still there, especially when
Very.
the president you can see that he's actually having that racism idea and ideology, and we can see this from his behavior, for his decisions he's making. So he's just bringing the same topic again, to life.
Good. So I mentioned the Black Lives Matter movement. And also, I need everyone, please, to note another movement that we call, that, of course, Donald Trump is accused also of supporting, that we call the white. Can someone finish? The white?
Supremacists.
Yes, excellent.
Supremacy.
So the white supremacist. Okay, maybe I should write these two names. Let me share, please, this with you, because it's really very, very interesting to remember these two movements nowadays. It's coming. I need to write them down. And please, whatever we mention in class, you can always always have further information by checking it online. So this is the first movement. Black Lives Matter. Of course, you understand that these words, Black Lives Matter, the verb matter. It means lives of black people are as important as the lives of white men. This is what we mean by this Black Lives Matter. So it's the verb to matter. So that's, and the opposite is, sorry, white supremacists. So Donald Trump is accused of supporting this white supremacist movement against Black Lives Matter. And it is exactly this opposition between these two movements, Black Lives Matter and white supremacists, that is the reason why I put the question, do you find there is a parallel between the civil war that happened some 150 years ago and what happened very, very recently? So you can see clearly there is a parallel. There is a comparison to be made there. So I hope you got the message. So what happened very briefly there? In the middle of the 19th century, white Americans of the North and South were unable to reconcile fundamental differences in their approach to government, economics, society, and African American slavery. Abraham Lincoln, one of the major presidents of the United States, whose statue, by the way, is taking central point in the Capitol. Okay, you can see a huge statue of him there. He was from the North, and what did he do? He who was the one, of course, who led the war against the South of the United States. How? Because, as Sir Mohammed Jian mentioned, there was a time when the northern states like had very flourishing, very prosperous commerce with the rest of the world, and the same was the case for the South, except that the southern states were using slaves to get rich, and this is something the northern states opposed. In theory, by the way, please bear in mind that these are very broad ideas. Some people say that it was not really a matter of principles or of religious principles. It was just a matter of politics. Once again, we don't have time to discuss this, but please bear in mind that the North was for the abolition. So the key word is the word abolition. I'm going to write it. Sorry, I give you enough time to look at it. Abolition, sorry, I made a mistake. I repeat, abolition. Okay, abolition. So to abolish means to stop or to ban, etc., or to destroy. So the northern states were for the abolition of slavery, but for the southern states, it was a matter of life and death. If ever they don't use those slaves as power to cultivate their lands, then their whole economy would collapse, and that's why they objected. Vehemently or strongly to the abolition of slavery. This led to the Civil War. So now I come back to my text. Okay. After the election of Abraham Lincoln, 11 southern states I skipped their names, seceded. So again, please check this verb to secede means to separate. To secede, I'm going to write it.
To
So
get
the
out.
verb
Yeah.
secede. So uh, 11 states seceded from the Union, because at that time it was a union, late 1860 and 61, establishing a rebel government that we call, and here comes our famous flag, the Confederate States of America, who had their, which I mean, held their or established their own flag that we saw a moment ago with that man in the middle of the Capitol. So these states established a Confederate States of America. The incoming Lincoln administration and most of the northern people refused to recognize the legitimacy of this secession. So notice the verb to secede, and the noun is secession. They feared that it would discredit democracy and create a fatal precedent that would eventually fragment the no longer United States into several small squabbling countries. So in other words, very simply, if the United States at that time in 1960s, in 1860, 61, allowed those Confederate states to secede, to separate from the United States, well, tomorrow, who can guarantee that another state would not also call for its own independence from the United States? So that's what we mean here by they would set a fatal precedent, sabiqa, precedent. Okay, they didn't want to give a chance to any other state to separate from the United States. Okay, the Civil War broke out in April 61. The war occurred for several reasons, but one of them, of course, as you have mentioned, was the slavery issue. There were, of course, other issues like economic differences between the North and the South. I skip all this to reach the aftermath or the result of the Civil War. The Civil War killed something like 600,000 people died because of the Civil War. So this is, as you can see, a huge number. And who killed these 600 people? 600,000 people? Americans. That's why we call it a civil war. In other words, brothers and sisters killed each other. Hence, the parallel which we just mentioned recently, that a lot of people say, okay, the American democracy, in fact, is not that strong as it's claimed, but it's a very fragile democracy because, look, these are people who are Americans and who are storming, attacking American democracy. And by the way, if you remember, among the people they wanted to kill, I insist on the word kill, was the vice president, Mike Pence. Okay, they wanted also to kill the head of the Congress. What's her name? Pelosi, a woman called Pelosi. So, in other words, these people were ready to do anything. And you can imagine if they succeeded, what would become of America. So, hence, again, this clear parallel between the former Civil War, which happened 150 years ago, and the current civil, let's not call it war, but let's civil uprising, civil turbulence, etc. One last element to be mentioned is how this president, Abraham Lincoln, was assassinated right after the end of the Civil War. He was assassinated while watching a play in a theater. And again, I advise you, please, if you have the chance to watch the movie titled simply Lincoln, please watch it. It gives you a very good idea what happened during the Civil War. Okay, it's 7:25. I leave the last 5 minutes for more debate maybe or more explanation of anything that we mentioned, and it needs maybe more explanation. Anyone please who wants to ask a question or add a comment is welcome. Okay, I feel there is no question. Okay, so week, next Tuesday, please, here is the program. I want to save time by asking you to do the extra work on your own so that when we meet on Tuesday, it will be a session of, let's say, recapitulation of the things you are going to read now, from now on until Tuesday. The first thing I'd like everyone to do is this. Please make sure you watch those two videos on in the American section of the course, British and American Civ, right? As you have probably noticed, my website is divided into courses, and the course of British and American Civ is divided itself into subsections. Please go to the American section and watch the two videos. It gives you an excellent and clear idea what happened in the United States from its birth until by the way, until, because the videos are quite old, until the presidency of Barack Obama. So it doesn't, you will notice that the videos don't include the presidency of Donald Trump or, of course, of Joe Biden. So watch that. It's enough to have a very good idea. And then we can discuss more later. What do I need also to? Yes, another thing to do, please read as much as possible all the lessons. As you have noticed, they are not long, I hope. I have tried like to make them as concise as possible. So read, you are not obliged to learn all the details, but to have a very general, broad idea about the both civilization, the British one and the American one. Because bear in mind that the final exam, especially if ever we're going to do it online, will not be a question about a specific course, because that would be too easy. You can guess that I'm not going to give you a stupid question by saying, okay, what's the Civil War? And then you just go over to the lesson and you copy it. That's not going to be this case. No, it will be a kind of synthetic question where you synthesize between different lessons in order to give us like your own point of view about, for example, the British Civ or the American Civ, or maybe comparison between the two, something like this. Anyway, it won't be something where that you can find online or in my own lessons directly. So please, if you do this, you're gonna have a very, very bad mark. Okay, I will consider this simply as plagiarism. So I hope that you got the message. So prepare questions that go in that direction. Like if you ever have a question like this, for example, you can ask me, sir, how can we deal with it, etc. This kind of question. Okay, I still give you a minute, please, to think of anything or if any question you want to put. Otherwise,
Sir?
Sir,
yes.
sir, I would like
Yes.
to ask you about the exams. So, if you have an idea that we will take the exams.
No, someone also already asked me this question on Tuesday, and I answered him by saying, unfortunately, I don't. But we teachers, we have insisted that please, I mean, with the administration, that please don't do it the same way as the receipt exam of last year, the spring exam. Don't do that because it was a complete failure, a complete disaster, and a lot of students like lost because simply they thought, okay, let's just copy and that's it. No, of course, if you copy, it's obvious that it's not yours. So don't do that. Please don't copy something from internet or from my own lessons, because in this case, you can be sure you're going to have a very bad mark. You should show the teacher that you read the whole thing and that you have come out with your own synthesis. Okay, this is the.
So, but in the official publication, they said that they are going to release the number of classes and tables. So I think it would be in presence.
Oh, that's anyway what we insisted on. So we are insisting on this, and in case it's done like the last exam, I personally, not only me, but a lot of teachers, we said that it's not fair for the good students, really, okay? Because first, I advise everyone, please, don't do those bad calculations that by saying, okay, in the first session, I'm gonna insist on just 2 or 3 subjects, and I leave the other exams for the recit. You have to know that in the receipt, the marks are limited. The maximum mark in general is 12, maybe 13 if the student is really exceptional. Okay, why? Because we said that the student who really does his or her best to work all the subjects in the first session deserve to have a very good mark. But the ones who do this kind of calculations should be offered or given the mark they deserve, which is kind of average mark and not a very good one. So please bear this in mind. All teachers, we take into consideration whether this is the exam of the first session or of the second session or receipt session. So please concentrate on the first session and do your best. Any other questions?
Sir, if it was in presence, are you going to include some information questions?
Excellent. Yes, excellent question, Sir Mohammed. Yeah, yes, indeed. If it's in person, there, and of course there is a teacher or there are teachers supervising the exam. Of course, I'm going to come back to my old way of examining. It means first part with the information questions or very short like answers, and the second part, which will be the main part. In general, I give the second part minimum 12 points, and the first part I give it in general not more than 7 or 6 points. Okay, so it will be the old way. Yes, indeed. Thank you for this question. So please have a look at my website and those practice questions or sample questions to have an idea how the exam is made. Yes, if it is in a person. Yes.
Sir,
Yes.
did the teacher, the Professor Montasser, accept to have one exam?
I think we'll agree on that. Yes, we haven't agreed, as I told you before, 100%. But the principle is yes. Principle is yes. Probably we'll try to have just one exam. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Well, guys, if you don't have any extra questions, then see you inshallah on Tuesday at 3:45 as usual. Thank you, and as